Last few months, there's been so much debate about pound for pound, favorite fighters, this era was better than that era. If you could kind of take someone from that era into this era, blah, 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 blah. And I wanted to do my top 5 British fighters of all time, just to see where you guys are and see who your top 5 are. You know what I didn't want to do when I did this? I didn't want to go to generations I don't know, but generations I've seen on YouTube in black and white on video cassettes. I could do that, and I could go back to the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, but let's be honest, we never really saw them, and you're almost going on what people say. It's like Sugar Ray Robinson, for example. A lot of people consider him number 1. So you got all the boxing critics have him as number 1. And it's difficult for me to have him number 1 because I haven't really seen tapes of him. I mean, I've seen some stuff, but I haven't seen tapes. So when people start naming, oh, Sugar Ray Robinson was a number, maybe, but we've got to be realistic. So I've gone for the top 5 fighters that I've grown up. I'm old enough to have seen all their fights, well, predominantly most 90% of their fights. I've watched them live. I've seen the impact they've had on boxing. Everything about them. So it's not just necessarily what they've done in the ring. It's what they've done outside the ring, how they promote. There's a bit of everything in the fighters I've chosen. The first of those guys, Chris Eubank. Do I need to say Chris Eubank Senior rather than Junior? Just to be clear about Chris Eubank. Chris Eubank, I think came along at a time when boxing didn't have too many enigmas, right? I think British boxing at that time didn't have many personalities. It kind of had your hard men, your tough men, and Chris Eubank came along and everyone was like, who the hell is this guy? No one kind of knew the backstory, i.e. growing up in America, winning Golden Gloves tournaments in America. Not many people knew this. He came with the monocle and the way he talked, very posh, very eloquent, and everyone was like, this is disgraceful. He looked at it as marketing genius. And it was, at the time, marketing genius. Because either way, if you loved him or you hated him, which a lot of people did, they hated him, he came to fight. And either way, you're paying your money to see him. Chris Eubank will be on the list, not because of what he done later on in his career, just for that one fight against Nigel Benn, where he stopped Nigel Benn in the 10th or 9th round. He's on the list just for that performance. That fight, I think, could go down as one of the best British fights with real animosity ever. Fantastic performance, but let's not forget the wins against the likes of Michael Watson, Sugar Boy Malinga was a good performance. Going up to cruiserweight to fight Carl Thompson. Also, I think people forget this. Look, his record might not have been great in terms of who he fought. Up until he fought, I think it was Steve Collins, Chris Eubank was 42-0. 42-0. When you think about how people talk about Mayweather now and 50-0, and a lot of people have this 0-0 thing is big. He was 42-0 going into that Steve Collins performance. And I always feel like him and Nigel Benn were never the same fighters going into the Steve Collins performance. They put up decent performances that are never the same fighters. With Chris Eubank is the Welsh wizard himself, Joe Calzaghe. I've always been a big fan of Joe Calzaghe, always. I think he suffers just a little bit because he came on the back end of Nigel Benn, Steve Collins, and Chris Eubank. Obviously, he fought Chris Eubank later on in his career. And I sometimes feel like he doesn't get credit for those wins, especially ones against Chris Eubank, because it came later on in his career. But nonetheless, big wins. Jeff Lacey, huge win. Remember, Jeff Lacey was the mini Mike Tyson, coming over to destroy Joe Calzaghe. Joe Calzaghe got the job done. Mikhail Kessler, 2 unbeaten fighters, got the job done. And then he wanted to have that kind of hurrah, if you like, that goodbye kind of wins against the likes of Roy Jones Jr. and Bernard Hopkins. Retired undefeated. Could he have done more? Possibly. Could he have fought bigger names? Possibly. Possibly that. I don't know if that's down to Calzaghe or his promotional company. At the time it was Frank Warren, then he kind of left Frank and done it on his own. I think he could have. You'd like to have seen him maybe take on the likes of Roy Jones and Bernard Hopkins earlier in their career. Maybe even a James Toney early in his career, but that didn't happen. But regardless, what a warrior, what a fighter. My number 3, and this is where it got very, very difficult for me. My number 3, It's strange because I realised most of my fighters are super middleweights, which is strange. Maybe that's the divisions, right? But number 3 is Carl Froch. Carl Froch actually turned pro quite late. Carl Froch turned pro, I say late, relatively late, at 24. And I remember at the time, I remember watching Carl Froch actually turn pro. And his style was very, very loose. Hands were low, and I remember thinking, this kid ain't gonna get far. My friend Ryan used to call him Frog, Carl Frog. And I remember always telling Ryan that Carl Froch will come good. He's tough as nails. People underestimated his boxing ability. Look, he was never an Andre Ward, but regardless, he could box. Won a good few amateur tournaments, he could box. But you know what impressed me more about Carl Froch, and I think more so than any British boxer that I can think of, is the run that he went on as soon as he went to world level. There's a thing now with British boxers, and it's very clear. They get to world level, they lose, they drop back to European or even British level. Carl Froch, win or lose, his run is as follows. John Pascal, Jermaine Taylor, this is all in a row by the way. John Pascal, Jermaine Taylor, Andre Durrell, Mikhail Kessler, Arthur Abraham, Glenn Johnson, Andre Ward, Lucien Boutte, Yusuf Mack, Kessler grows twice. That's ridiculous. There is no gimme fights in there. None. That is a run and a half. When you talk about having hard fights, hard camps, back to back, Carl Froch is the epitome of that. The fight that puts Carl Froch in this list for me more than others, and he's got a few, but the one that does it for me is Lucien Boutte. I mean, Carl Froch just lost in the Super 8 tournament, I think it was the Super 8, to Andre Ward. Got beat quite convincingly, I think. And then it was a case of, okay, what do we do next with Carl Froch? There's even talks about possibly retiring. And then he thought, you know what, give me Lucien Boutte, the IBF champion, unbeaten. Everyone considered, actually at the time, and guys, you might remember this, Lucien Boutte was considered the best super middleweight in the world. Carl Froch said, give me him. Destroyed him. Destroyed Lucien Boutte. The pressure that was on Carl Froch in that performance just to get the job done. Remember, if you're world level, you can't really have back-to-back defeats, and that's what was facing him against Lucien Boutte. Destroyed him. Carl Froch is a monster of a fighter. Just when you think of a warrior that won't take a back foot, that's Carl Froch. My top 2 was uber difficult. Like, oh man, and it's been like this for years for me, for at least 15 years. I've not been able to kind of decide who my favourite of the 2 is. And you know, a lot of it doesn't necessarily come down to their boxing ability and what they won in the ring, and they both won a lot. It more comes down to just them, their attitude, almost. This is gonna sound ridiculous. Every time I go to the gym, which is quite a bit, I try and go to the gym quite a bit now to keep fit. There's a tape of this guy talking, and I play it just to motivate me. And I think he's either talking about, he mentions Roy Jones, and he talks about Chris Eubank. And that guy's Nigel Benn. He's number 2. And I'm sorry, Nigel. You could be number 1, but you're number 2. The Dark Destroyer. To me, just on sheer grit and determination, this guy could have competed in any era of super middleweights or middleweights. Just on sheer grit. Like, he won't go down without swinging. He won't go down without singing. When you think of a guy you do not want to see in a dark alley, when you think of a guy that you do not want to piss off, when you think of a guy that is the epitome of his nickname, the Dark Destroyer, it's Nigel Benn. It's Nigel Benn. For me, just a machine, a monster, a brute force. And it's strange, you look at Nigel Benn, he had defeats. Remember, he lost to Michael Watson early. I say early, I think it was his 23rd fight. What did he do? Went to America. Went to America and beat the likes of Doug DeWitt, Iron Barkley, won the WBO middleweight title. Then lost that to Chris Eubank. And you kind of feel like that could have been it. That could have been it, right? 2 defeats against British guys as well, so it hurts even more, I guess, for him. Ex-army guy, ex-soldier. It hurts for him, those losses. But again, built his career again. Built his career. Had that fight with Eubank, which he won. The draw in Old Trafford, definitely won that. But you know what gets him on this list? The reason he's number 2, he could be number 1, but the reason he's number 2 on the list, John McClellan. I remember McClellan, I remember like it was yesterday. McClellan, I remember all the build-up. McClellan with his dogs. This guy, hard as nails, almost street tough. I remember thinking, Ben's done. Ben is done. I actually remember Ben getting knocked down in the, was it the first round? I think he could have broken his jaw. I think McClellan could have broken his jaw. And this was it. Remember, Ben was considered a puncher, right? McClellan was considered even a harder puncher. So I remember thinking, Ben's done. Because Ben's boxing ability wasn't the greatest, let's be very honest about it. So I remember thinking, if he's not the tougher of this guy, if he's not tougher, how's he going to get through this? I actually had no idea. And I remember him getting knocked down. And I remember Frank Bruno being ringside. And I remember Frank Bruno, I remember this as a kid. Frank Bruno, I think he was wearing a red suit. And I remember him banging on the canvas. And Frank Bruno looked like the Incredible Hulk, looked massive. I remember thinking, it was one of the first times growing up as a kid where I actually felt patriotic to be British. Like, you know, me as a young black kid, especially in those times, it was still a bit racist, let's be honest guys. It was almost like every bit of energy went through Nigel Benn. Every single bit of energy that everyone was feeding off in that crowd went to him. And look, it's awful the way it ended in terms of Joe McClellan and where he is now. But nothing, I repeat, no man was going to stop Nigel Benn that evening. No man. My number 1, and oh, I miss this guy so much. I miss this guy so much. You know, boxing for me has always been about the big guys. Always has been. Growing up in my household, it was almost like Mike Tyson was a family member. It was all about Mike Tyson and Frank Bruno, and obviously you hear about the Ali stories. You know, you heard about the likes of the Fabulous Four, but you didn't ever really care about the guys below that. So the guys at 130, 126, 135, you didn't give a shit about them. I mean, you do now, but back then, nah, not interested. Until this kid came along in leopard print, tiger print pants and started dancing around the ring. And I kid you not, I thought he was a fool. I thought he was a fool. I was young enough to, I was old enough to kind of understand boxing in terms of the principles, in terms of how you're supposed to fight. I remember looking at him thinking, what's he doing? And I remember actually wanting him to get knocked out. I remember thinking his showboating is pissing me off. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the way he jumps into the ring. I'm tired of his cocky attitude. And then you know what? Fell in love with him. Fell in love with him. Obviously that guy's Prince Naseem Hamed. Prince Naseem Hamed. Every guy that fights in the lower weight classes right now should look at Prince Naseem Hamed and say, thank God you came along. Thank God you came along. Prince Naseem Hamed is only second to Muhammad Ali in terms of entertainment. Only second to Muhammad Ali. This kid entertained. Sometimes I think boxers forget that this sport is entertainment as well. Look, boxing is a serious sport. You don't think about it in boxing. But I almost believe that sometimes fighters forget that it's partly entertainment as well. I remember seeing that Adidas advert. I remember this is before I don't even remember boxers being sponsored like that back in the day. But I remember that Adidas advert. I'm going to try and show it for you guys. Where it's almost like he's invading the US. Do you remember that one? And he does that flip off the ferry, which I don't know why it'd be a ferry, but he does a flip off, throws his bag down, does a flip off the ferry, and almost says, I'm here in America. Prince Naseem Hamed was just so unconventional, it was beautiful. He is a promoter's, a fan's dream. He was king of the featherweight division for a while. People will argue with me right now and say he didn't fight the fight. It's difficult to argue with that. But back then, I will say that not many people knew who were the great lower weight fighters back then. Until obviously the likes of Pacquiao came along and Marquez and all that. We Morales, we knew that. Barrera, who we fought. But back then, it was difficult to say who were the greats because that was a division that no one was interested in. But then regardless, still fought the likes of Tom Johnson, Wilfredo Vasquez, Wayne McCulloch, Augie Sanchez, Kevin Kelly, Steve Robinson, who he absolutely embarrassed. And I feel like it's a shame we're obviously privy now to kind of see what happened in the build-up to the Barrera fight. I think Naseem Hamed's mind just wasn't on the job, and I'm not just making an excuse for him. He was also in the build-up. He wasn't serious. I don't think he was training correctly, living the life too much, possibly partying and doing all the things that he probably shouldn't do. And I think he underestimated Barrera. He was a big favourite to win that fight. You guys can go back and look at the odds in the build-up to the fight. And I think that I still believe we actually didn't get to see the best Naseem Hamed. And that's unbelievable to think, but I kind of feel like once he lost, just wasn't interested. And I feel like as a boxer, that is the time to retire, when you're not interested anymore. He mentioned about his family and possible injuries in his hands. I just think he wasn't interested. He retired, I think, at 27, 28. Think about that. Guys. 27 years old. I think he had 36 fights, 31 wins by KO. He was a force. And you almost feel like the best years, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. We're probably talking 6 years, 7 years maybe. We could have seen more Prince Naseem Hamed, maybe jumping up weights. There was rumours about him fighting Floyd Mayweather for a while, even Arturo Gatti. And it's such a big shame that we never got to see him in those big fights. But regardless, he's my number one. Guys, get your numbers below. Let me know what you think. Peace.